You know that tiny, annoying feeling when you realize you could have saved a couple of dollars but didn't? It sticks with you way longer than it should. You replay it while driving home, unloading groceries, putting things away. $2 and some change somehow feel like a personal failure. And yet, parked outside might be a car payment that quietly drains hundreds every month, or a house payment that leaves almost no breathing room. The small miss hurts. The big ones barely register. That mismatch isn't a math problem. It's a mindset problem. A lot of people who consider themselves good with money are actually just good at feeling the pain of spending. Every dollar that leaves their wallet feels like a loss. Their brain lights up with the same discomfort, whether it's $2 or $2,000. So they focus on what feels urgent rather than what actually matters. Psychologically, it makes sense. Humans are wired to avoid immediate losses more than future ones. But financially, that wiring can quietly sabotage long-term progress. Take the classic bargain chase. You hear about gas that's a bit cheaper across town, or a store running a small discount if you drive a little farther. It feels responsible, even disciplined, to go out of your way for the lower price. But when you factor in the time spent, the fuel used, and the mental energy burned, the savings may shrink or disappear entirely. If that extra trip takes half an hour, what else could that time have gone toward? Rest, family, skill building, or even just mental recovery all have value, even if they don't show up as a line item on a receipt. This is where the difference between being cheap and being strategic starts to show. Cheap thinking asks, how little can I pay right now? Strategic thinking asks, what am I getting in return for what I spend? One focuses on minimizing the outflow in the moment. The other focuses on the overall outcome over time. That shift becomes clearer when you look at spending that doesn't come with a clear, immediate payoff. A ticket to a professional event, a course, a conference, or even a dinner where you meet people outside your usual circle can look like an unnecessary expense through a purely short-term lens. There's no guarantee anything will come from it. But there's also the possibility that one conversation, one idea, or one introduction could open a door that wouldn't have existed otherwise. The return isn't in the food or the venue. It's in the access, the perspective, and the optionality. None of that is guaranteed, of course, but over time, those small probabilities can compound in meaningful ways. Ironically, the ability to think this way often depends on something very basic: a cushion. When someone has even a modest emergency fund, their brain tends to shift out of constant threat mode. Without that buffer, every purchase can feel like it might trigger disaster. With a buffer, the same purchase can be evaluated more calmly. It's not that the numbers change, it's that the emotional pressure does. And when the pressure drops, decision quality often improves. This is one reason the endless debate over small daily indulgences can be misleading. Yes, small expenses add up over time. That's a mathematical reality. But obsessing over every minor purchase while ignoring the big structural costs in your life can create a false sense of control. It's possible to skip every little treat and still be under serious financial strain because of oversized fixed expenses like housing, vehicles, or high-interest debt. Those large commitments usually have far more impact than the occasional coffee or convenience purchase, yet they're less emotionally charged because they're normalized and automated. There's also a hidden cognitive cost to constant penny pinching. Every tiny optimization takes a decision, brand A or brand B. Drive here or there, use the coupon or skip it. Each one draws from a limited pool of mental energy. By the end of the day, that pool can be depleted, leaving less capacity for higher leverage choices. Negotiating compensation, exploring a career shift, researching a side project, or learning a new skill all require focus and creativity. If most of your decision bandwidth is spent squeezing small savings out of routine purchases, you may have little left for the moves that could meaningfully change your trajectory. Some people find it helpful to create simple personal rules to reduce this drain. For example, they might decide that purchases under a certain amount don't require deep analysis, as long as their overall finances are stable. The exact number will differ for everyone, but the principle is the same. Automate or simplify low-impact decisions so you can reserve energy for high-impact ones. It's less about being careless and more about being selective with your attention. Underneath all of this often sits a deeper belief system, sometimes described as a scarcity mindset. This is the persistent sense that there will never be enough. Not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough security. When that belief is running in the background, spending can feel dangerous, even when the numbers suggest it's manageable. The mind treats every dollar as if it might be the last one you'll ever see. For many people, that mindset has understandable roots. Past financial instability, family stress around money, or difficult economic periods can train the brain to stay on high alert. That vigilance may have been protective at one point, but carried forward indefinitely, it can lead to decisions that prioritize avoiding any risk over pursuing reasonable growth. Someone might avoid investing in education, tools, or experiences that could increase their earning potential because the upfront cost feels too threatening, even if the long-term trade-off could be favorable. Language sometimes reveals this pattern. Saying, "I can't afford that," can become an automatic response that shuts down exploration. Reframing it as, "I'm choosing not to spend on that right now because I'm prioritizing something else," doesn't magically create money, but it can subtly restore a sense of agency. The situation may be the same, yet the psychological posture shifts from helplessness to choice. That shift can influence how people look for solutions, negotiate, or plan their next steps. Perhaps the most expensive version of chronic cheapness shows up in how people treat investment in themselves. Spending on skills, education, health, or tools that improve earning ability or quality of life can feel indulgent when viewed only as a cost. There's no guaranteed payoff, and outcomes vary widely depending on effort, timing, and circumstance. Still, over long periods, people who consistently allocate resources toward increasing their capabilities may expand their opportunities more than those who focus solely on minimizing expenses. None of this suggests that every course, event, or purchase is worthwhile, or that cutting small costs never matters. Thoughtful spending and awareness are valuable. The key difference is whether the primary goal is to avoid the feeling of spending or to improve overall life outcomes. One is driven mostly by fear of loss. The other is guided by a broader evaluation of value, risk, and potential return, with the understanding that uncertainty is always part of the equation. In the end, wealth building in any form is rarely about winning 1,000 tiny battles while ignoring the big war. It's more often about directing limited time, money, and attention toward the decisions that carry the most weight, while letting go of the need to optimize every last detail. The real shift isn't from spending to not spending. It's from reacting emotionally to every dollar, to using money deliberately as a tool. That mental transition may be gradual, but over time, it can change not just how finances look on paper, but how much mental space they take up in everyday life. Most people don't lose their financial future in one dramatic mistake. They lose it quietly, in small decisions that feel smart in the moment and expensive only years later. Picture two people starting from roughly the same place. Similar income, similar bills, similar dreams about someday feeling more secure. One spends years obsessing over tiny savings, always choosing the cheapest option, always delaying anything that feels like an extra cost. The other is still careful, still aware of money, but begins to ask a different question. Not just, how much does this cost, but what might this cost me if I ignore it? Fast forward 5 years, and their lives may look very different. Not because one got lucky, but because their decision filters slowly pulled them in opposite directions. Health is one of the clearest examples. Skipping routine care can feel like saving money, especially when nothing hurts right now. A cleaning, a checkup, a diagnostic test can look like optional expenses when budgets are tight. But small issues have a habit of growing quietly. What might have been handled quickly and cheaply can turn into something more complex, more disruptive, and far more expensive later on. And the true cost isn't just financial. It can include pain, stress, missed work, and a reduced quality of life that no spreadsheet fully captures. The same pattern shows up with cars, homes, and even the things we use every day. Ignoring a strange noise in your vehicle because you don't want to pay for an inspection can sometimes lead to bigger repairs down the road. Choosing the absolute lowest quality mattress to save a couple $100 might mean years of poor sleep and lingering discomfort. None of these outcomes are guaranteed, of course, but the risk often shifts when we consistently choose the lowest upfront price without considering durability, reliability, or long-term impact. This is where a broader concept comes into play, something often associated with investing but just as relevant to daily life: return on investment. Every time you spend money, you're making a trade. Money is exchanged for time saved, stress reduced, opportunities created, or problems avoided. Some purchases produce little lasting value. Others may quietly improve your efficiency, your health, or your earning potential in ways that compound over time. Consider tools you rely on for work. A reliable computer, comfortable chair, or quality equipment can look expensive at checkout. But if those tools help you work more smoothly, avoid frustration, or present yourself more professionally, their value may extend well beyond their price tag. On the other hand, repeatedly replacing very cheap items that break, malfunction, or slow you down can add up in both money and lost time. The goal isn't to buy the most expensive version of everything, but to think in terms of usefulness and longevity rather than just sticker price. It's important to draw a clear line here. Strategic spending is not the same as impulsive spending. Living beyond your means in the name of investing in yourself can create serious financial stress. The distinction lies in intentionality. Thoughtful decisions weigh current stability alongside potential long-term benefit. They acknowledge uncertainty and avoid assuming that every purchase will magically pay for itself. But they also recognize that refusing to spend on anything that might help you grow can carry its own risks. There's also a practical ceiling on how much expenses can be reduced. Most people can only cut so far before their quality of life starts to suffer. Income, on the other hand, has the potential to change over time through new skills, better opportunities, or expanded networks. That doesn't happen automatically, and outcomes vary widely, but focusing at least some energy on increasing capacity rather than only shrinking costs can shift the trajectory. One way to think about spending decisions is to ask a few simple questions. Could this save meaningful time on a regular basis? Might it improve my ability to earn, learn, or perform? Could it reduce the chance of a larger, more disruptive cost later? If the answer to any of those is potentially yes, and your financial situation is stable enough to handle it, the purchase may deserve a closer look. Not as a guaranteed win, but as a calculated trade. Relationships are another area where strict cheapness can carry hidden costs. The way you treat people, the reliability you demonstrate, and the generosity you show within your means all shape your reputation. This isn't about spending extravagantly to impress others. It's about understanding that trust, goodwill, and mutual support often grow from small, consistent signals of respect and consideration. Over time, those signals can influence who thinks of you when opportunities, collaborations, or referrals arise. There's no formula for this, and nothing is promised, but social capital tends to accumulate through behavior that reflects care rather than constant scorekeeping. Underneath many financial habits sits a deeper identity story. Some people quietly see themselves as someone who is always on the edge, always at risk of not having enough. That belief can lead to chronic hesitation, even when their situation improves. Others begin to see themselves as someone who makes deliberate choices with limited resources, allocating money toward what matters most while accepting that not every option is possible right now. The external behavior might look similar in some cases, but the internal narrative is very different. Language can reinforce these narratives. Automatically saying, "I can't afford that," can shut down creative thinking and reinforce a sense of powerlessness. Reframing it as, "That's not where I'm choosing to put my money at the moment," keeps the decision intact, but shifts the sense of control. It reminds you that trade-offs are being made, not that you're simply stuck. Over time, this subtle shift can influence how you approach negotiations, career moves, and long-term planning. All of this points to a broader idea. Financial progress often depends less on extreme frugality and more on aligning spending with long-term priorities. That might mean cutting back in areas that bring little value while being willing to spend thoughtfully in areas that support health, skills, tools, or relationships. It's not about abandoning caution. It's about directing caution where it has the most impact. No approach eliminates uncertainty. Investments in yourself may or may not pay off as hoped. Preventive spending may reduce risks, but never remove them entirely. Still, consistently viewing money as a tool for shaping your future, rather than just something to protect at all costs, can change how decisions are made. Over years, those decisions can compound, not just financially, but in confidence, capability, and resilience. In the end, the difference isn't between people who spend and people who don't. It's between those who react to every expense with fear and those who pause to consider the bigger picture. One mindset plays constant defense, trying to avoid any immediate loss. The other tries to balance protection with thoughtful offense, looking for ways resources might create stability and opportunity over time. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but once it begins, the ripple effects can reach far beyond a single purchase.